grasping the reality that the majority of your life, including perhaps your prime years, will be spent behind cold prison bars can be overwhelmingly heartbreaking. A life sentence, more often than not, results from committing grave offenses. However, the individuals handed down this daunting verdict react and adapt in various ways. While some might argue that the harshness of such a penalty fits the crime, one cannot ignore the profound emotional and psychological anguish it inflicts. Confronting an uncertain and confined future, these individuals grapple with a myriad of emotions and challenges, a testament to the profound human capacity for resilience and adaptation. Get ready as we count down the top 10 most shocking convict outbursts that left everyone in the room stunned. Number 10. Adrian Dunn tried to fight courtroom deputies. In a botched narcotics transaction, Adrian Dunn took the life of Rakeem Charles. Throughout the trial, the prosecution shed light on Dunn's extensive criminal history, emphasizing the high probability of him reoffending given his past behaviors. The presiding judge concurred with this perspective, handing Dunn a life sentence. In a testament to the court's concerns, Dunn's reaction only solidified their fears. He erupted in violence, wrestling with nearly 5 court officers in an attempt to resist restraint. His defiance was marked by a torrent of insults hurled at the deputies, showcasing the depth of his aggression and unpredictability. Number 9. Manson Bryant freaked out in an angry rant. When the individual at the center of a trial goes by the name of Manson, it's hardly a harbinger of a smooth court proceeding. Manson Bryant, with a history marked by a litany of criminal activities, was on trial for an assortment of offenses, including kidnapping, robbery, and an armed robbery from 2018. During his sentencing, Bryant took a moment to reflect on his past, attributing many of his transgressions to the influence of drugs. He claimed to be on a path to self-reform, and graciously acknowledged the justice system and the court for their impartiality. However, upon receiving a 22-year sentence, his demeanor drastically shifted. The once seemingly remorseful Bryant lashed out vehemently, hurling accusations of racism at the judge and filling the courtroom with expletives. His verbal assault seemed unending as he unleashed a storm of F-bombs. Observing this unruly behavior, the judge promptly added an additional 6 years to his sentence, making it evident that respect for the court was non-negotiable. Number 8. Erica Mae Butts screamed and hyperventilated. Erica Mae Butts and Shanita Latrice Cunningham found themselves at the center of a harrowing trial, charged with the heinous crime of ending the life of a 3-year-old they had been entrusted to care for. Although Cunningham chose to plead guilty, Butts took a slightly different route by entering an Alford plea. This essentially allowed her to claim innocence, yet simultaneously acknowledged the weight of evidence against her that would likely result in a conviction if the case proceeded to trial. Perhaps clinging to a shred of hope for some judicial leniency, both were met with a jolting reality when the gavel came down, sentencing them to life imprisonment. As the weight of the verdict sank in, Butts suffered an intense emotional outburst in the courtroom. Her shrieks filled the air as she lost her composure, crumpling to the floor while gasping for breath in the throes of hyperventilation. Cunningham, overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation, lost consciousness and had to be urgently escorted out of the courtroom on a wheelchair. The harrowing scene painted a vivid picture of the raw emotions that the legal system often lays bare. Number 7. Base Webb spit on a judge. Base Webb had already established a grim reputation during his prison stint, having been initially sentenced to 50 years for the cold-blooded murder of his former girlfriend. But the shadows of his crimes didn't stop there. Years into his sentence, he was handed a life term for yet another ruthless killing. As if to further compound his notorious reputation within the prison's walls, he was then accused of attempting to murder 2 prison staff members. The complexities of the trial deepened when the presiding judge had to step down from her role due to personal ties with the victims. In a blatant display of disrespect, Webb reacted to this by spitting in her direction. This brazen act of contempt resulted in another trial, adding 37 years to his already extensive sentence for the assault of the prison employees. With such an expansive rap sheet, one might wonder what more could be taken from Webb, whose life seemed to spiral further into a vortex of crime and punishment with each passing day. Number 6. Ryan Stone bragged about his crimes. In certain jurisdictions, the term life sentence may translate to under 2 decades. Yet, in some other areas, it stretches out to a minimum of 25 years or more. Ryan Stone, however, found himself facing a staggering 160 years behind bars. This extraordinary sentence came after he instigated a perilous high-speed pursuit, with police chasing him over a distance of 60 miles. As the chase unraveled, Stone accumulated a slew of charges. Among them were attempted manslaughter and child abuse. The latter stemmed from a particularly distressing incident during the chase where he carjacked an SUV, only to discover a 4-year-old child in the back seat. Attempting to play the sympathy card, Stone blamed his drug-induced state for his spree of recklessness. However, his facade unraveled during the sentencing. The prosecution presented jailhouse recordings of Stone gloating about his newfound media fame and mocking the intelligence of his victims. Such revelations painted a picture of a man who reveled in his notoriety, undermining any claims of remorse or rehabilitation. Number 5. Danta Wright thought it was a joke. Victim impact statements provide a platform for the grieving families and friends of victims to express their emotions during murder trials. In a particularly heart-wrenching case involving the murder of 18-year-old Jordan Klee, the courtroom atmosphere was heavy with sorrow as his family recounted their pain and loss. Yet, shockingly, Danta Wright, the accused killer, displayed a chilling indifference. Instead of showing remorse, he was seen stifling his laughter, showcasing a brazen disregard for the gravity of his actions and the agony of the bereaved family. Following the emotional statements from Klee's family, Wright took a moment to address the court. With audacity, he reassured his family that he would be returning home shortly. His misplaced confidence was quickly shattered when the hammer of justice fell, sentencing him to a term ranging from 25 to 50 years for his heinous act. Such a display of callousness in the face of profound grief underscores the depth of Wright's detachment of the atrocity he committed. Number 4. Bryce Rhodes spit, swore, and yelled through his trial. Bryce Rhodes stood trial for a gruesome triple homicide, and his behavior throughout the proceedings was nothing short of erratic and tumultuous. As a defendant facing either the death penalty or life imprisonment, one might expect Rhodes to exhibit signs of remorse or at least apprehension. However, his demeanor in court reflected neither. Instead, he constantly disrupted the judicial process with wild outbursts. Bizarrely, he claimed the presiding judge was affiliated with the KKK. In a shocking display of disrespect, he even spat on an attorney present in the courtroom. Rhodes went on to dismiss multiple lawyers, making incoherent statements and shooting mocking smiles towards the grieving families of his victims. His attorney made an appeal, suggesting Rhodes undergo a competency evaluation, indicating his behavior might be a result of some mental incapacitation. However, the victims' families saw this as a mere stalling tactic, speculating Rhodes was simply trying to elongate the trial and postpone the inevitable judgment for his heinous acts. His actions painted a chaotic picture of the courtroom, revealing the depths of a man detached from the gravity of his crimes. Number 3. Michael Marin ended it all. Michael Marin, once living a life of luxury, found himself in dire financial straits, unable to keep up with his mortgage. With his plan to raffle his lavish mansion for charitable purposes falling through, he resorted to burning his house to claim insurance money. When his deceit was uncovered and he was taken to trial, the gravity of charges like arson and insurance fraud became palpably real. The potential sentence ranged from 7 to a daunting 21 years. For a 53-year-old man, this was practically a life sentence. As the guilty verdict was delivered, Marin was observed bringing his hands to his mouth in the courtroom. Unbeknownst to the onlookers, this wasn't just an expression of grief or shock. Hidden in his hand was a cyanide pill, which he discreetly placed in his mouth and swallowed with a drink. Moments later, he started to convulse, tragically dying in front of a stunned courtroom. Number 2. Ted Kaczynski listed 8 life sentences as awards. Ted Kaczynski, infamously known as the Unabomber, received 8 life sentences for his reign of terror that led to 3 fatalities and injuries to almost 24 individuals from the explosives he discreetly dispatched via mail. His unsettling audacity was further highlighted when, after receiving these hefty sentences, he audaciously chose to categorize them as awards when updating his credentials with the Harvard Alumni Association as his 50-year class reunion approached in 2012. The act shocked many and forced the Alumni Association into an uncomfortable position. They eventually had to issue an apology for inadvertently including such a macabre achievement into their publication, acknowledging the pain it could have caused the victims' families and reflecting on the need for more rigorous oversight in their updates. Number 1. Suck your mum. Facing a life sentence is bound to evoke strong emotions, and when confronted with such a grave outcome, some might argue that there's little left to lose. Thus, expressing oneself candidly, especially in the face of a perceived injustice, becomes more appealing, as was the case with Zarek McCoy. McCoy was found guilty of launching a vicious attack on a couple, discharging his firearm 16 times at them. In a twist of fate, both victims miraculously lived to tell the tale. Despite being acquitted of attempted murder, McCoy was handed a life sentence for inflicting grievous bodily harm. The judge maintained that his hands were tied by the law. Unable to contain his fury, McCoy lashed out verbally at the judge, uttering the defiant words, "Suck your mum, rude boy." His outburst swiftly resulted in his removal from the courtroom, a poignant conclusion to a deeply charged trial.